as to what we've been seeing up until now. In the earlier section, we looked at the simple business cycle within a cash business. And the cash or working capital had to move around in this model. It had to continue to flow in order for the business to survive, financially speaking. So the business had to remain solvent. And that's our first rule of financial survival. But how does this rule get affected when we introduce credit sales? How will the model be changed to accommodate this change? In the simple cash business, the goods were sold out of this finished goods reservoir and they flowed into the cash reservoir. Now remember what I said to you. This applies the same when you're doing a service or you're selling physical goods. Because in effect, when you're delivering a service, you are actually delivering goods. But when someone's creating a web page, the finished goods they're selling is the designed web page, or applies to those businesses where services are being rendered, as well as those businesses where physical goods are being delivered. Now, in the earlier model, the flow went along this part of the model where you can see it leaving the finished goods reservoir and going into the cash reservoir. However, when we sell on credit, it generally means that that customer is going to pay us sometime in the future and isn't going to pay us when the goods were received, physically that is, or when the service was delivered, but are going to rather pay us on a future date. Now, what does that mean? That means that the cash is going to be caught up in another reservoir. And in this model, we depict that reservoir in this spot here. So instead of the cash flow or the solvency flow in the cash conversion cycle just being a simple circle, it now has this diversion. And it goes into what I've called a customer reservoir. Now, in the accounting packages, we talk about these customers not as customers, but as debtors, as people who owe the business money and are going to pay on some future date. Now, let us go back to our simple business that we were looking at. We were looking at a cabinet maker. And in his case, we were saying that he invested $2,000 into this business and into this working cash cycle. Now, let us assume the rules are the same. He's selling one kitchen cabinet set a week. So he's not changing his business model. All that he is changing, though, is the customer isn't going to pay him on the date he delivers and completes that job, but is going to pay him 30 days later. And generally speaking, when we say 30 days later, if I deliver the kitchen cabinets in the first week of the month, it really means that I'm going to get paid at the end of month 2 for that kitchen cabinets. So this is what's going to happen to this cabinet maker. The kitchen he delivers in week 1 is going to get caught up in this reservoir, or the money he's invested in that kitchen is going to get caught up in this reservoir. And it's not going to flow back to the cash reservoir immediately, but it's only going to flow back at the end of month 2. So what does that mean for him? It means that he needs to have another $2,000 to deliver the kitchen for the second week, because he needs to go and buy those raw materials. So in this kind of business, he's going to move from $2,000 to $4,000 investment in working capital, or money that is put into this working capital cash flow. And that's in 2 weeks. And the kitchen that was delivered in the second week is also only going to get paid at the end of month 2. And what happens in the third week? Well, the same process happens. So he has to invest a further $2,000 into the process. And in the fourth week, another $2,000. So by the end of the first month, remember we said we're dealing with 4 weeks, so we're making it nice and round. So at the end of those first period of 4 weeks, he will have invested $8,000. Will his profit per week have changed in this environment? And the simple answer is no, it's going to be the same. So now we go into the second month, but he still hasn't received any of this money that is caught up in this reservoir. So in the second month, he's going to have to invest further into the working capital in this business. And the same process will happen each week. So by the end of the second month, just before he's been paid, he will have invested $8,000 for month one and $8,000 for month two. So he will have invested $16,000 into his working capital in this part of the business. Does that make sense? Can you see that? So he's invested $16,000. And is he making more money per week? No. He is still receiving $5,000 a week, which converts to $3,000 profit a week. It's just being accumulated. So when the payment happens at the end of month two, he's going to get 4 weeks of $5,000 worth of turnover. It's $20,000. But he will have invested $16,000 up until that point. That $20,000 offsets the first 4 weeks of $2,000 investment. So he will have received a profit of $12,000 for the month. But that was no different to when he was doing a cash business and he was receiving his money in cash every week. He also only earned $12,000 of profit at the end of month one. This is the most important effect that customers who pay on credit have on the business. They increase the amount that the business requires for this working capital flow. And if the business doesn't have, or this owner doesn't have the $16,000 to invest for these 2 months worth of business, then this business is going to fail because the inflow is not going to happen and the sale is not going to happen. I hope this makes sense, how important this simple little step is and what a large effect this has on the working capital. Let me tell you, I have seen many budget exercises being displayed in boardrooms and marketing guys and sales reps getting totally excited at the increase in sales by these customers that are now buying on credit. But they fail to present to the board what is the increase in working capital and can the business actually carry this kind of increase in sales or this kind of business. Does it happen in large businesses? Yes. And I have seen 2 major large retail corporations fall foul of this rule. The one took evasive action and was able to survive. The other suffered the consequences of doing this action and creating this area of business and lost part of its profit because it had to go and factorize its book and it had to sell these debtors to a financial institution. The effect of this, it gave away 15% of its turnover to the financial institution in order to regain that working capital cash flow. A phenomenal effect. 15% of its margin disappeared.